which brings up the interesting point, I think, about your webinar number 2, How Dogs Move, that, when some people watch handlers, some people watch dogs. I watch the dogs, and I see a lot of dogs running that don't look quite right to me. And, they're not limping, and nobody, wants to hear there's something funny about your dog. So we just, I just observe it. And I see like there are a lot of dogs that look more funny than Dakota looked, before I started questioning, is there something going on here? What do you think? I mean, are there a lot of dogs that are just running around with slight things that are going to build into big injuries that could be stopped if people caught it earlier?
Way too many. And it is something, like I said, it's one of the reasons why I want to do part 2 of things. It's basically going to be to talk about how can you see lameness in one degree or else, because everybody can see a dog that is on 3 legs. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that something is not quite right. But even what would for me be something fairly obvious may not be the same for somebody else. And there is a whole spectrum of issues. And if we go to the very, very mild, subtle things, it may just be something that you can only see in a certain situation, or with a certain maneuver, or with a certain directional turn, or whatever it may be. It's not because you can't see it when the dog is walking or you can't see it when the dog is trotting that there's no issue. And I think that is a little bit the difficult part of trying to explain it, not just to handlers and to owners, but to vets as well. Because that's what they will do. They might trot the dog up and down. They don't really see much. And they say, your dog is fine.
Yeah, and the funny thing with Dakota, that that feeling, like I would just feel like some little hitch happened. I'm like, what was that? In the corner of my eye, I could sense it when he was when we were in hiking, or just something didn't feel right. And it wasn't until I did slow-mo on an iPhone 11 that has an incredible camera that I saw that his outside leg, when wrapping a cone, it was going in the position like it was running, but it wasn't quite touching the ground every now and then. And it was sometimes during the turn, sometimes it was going into the turn. So it made me wonder, is he just anticipating that this is going to hurt a little bit and he's doing it beforehand? But not only was that interesting, but then once I saw it in the slow-mo, then my brain was able to pick it up in real time. And now, afterwards I could see, oh, he just did it. Only because my brain had been primed to see something that before it was, thinking, well, this is, irrelevant. It's just motion. And I do think I perhaps led these vets down the rabbit hole by showing them a slow-mo video that they've never seen a slow-mo video of a dog doing that. And so in their minds, it went to, this is a real-time thing that is visible. And this then looks like, something that perhaps they wouldn't have thought had I just sent them a real-time video where you couldn't see this.
And that's that's the other side of things. It's one, things happen so quickly, you potentially can't pick up on them. So that's also why we have all these nice extra bits these days of gait analysis and pressure mats and these things that will tell us even things that we may not pick up on with the naked eye, if you want, that something's off. And the other thing is that for us to see that something's off, there's something has to be properly off quite a bit already, for it to be really, really visible. And that, together with them being able to compensate for a lot, makes it sometimes for a bit of a difficult interpretation of whatever is going on. So as far as, for most people that I see, handlers say something's wrong with my dog, but I can't put my finger on it, they're usually right. That's how I feel about it. And unless we pretty much excluded everything and we say, you know what, it really is, I don't know, a training issue. It has been something that the dog has been doing for the last 6-7 years, for argument's sake. And that's how it is. Unless we are at that point, something's not quite right.
Well, and so the thing I noticed with Dakota was he just didn't have the kind of power when he was running. And so he looked fine, but he didn't feel fine. And I think a lot of, at least the higher level competitors, people who've been doing it a long time, you do get a sense of it. And then you're also watching your, course times, your yards per second, where you are with dogs you normally, within a second of, and you see, oh, wow, we're, 2 seconds off our time. That is significant if you feel you had a clean run. So I think there's a lot of ways that can confirm that something might not be quite right. But then, like, what do you do about it? If you can't, I guess you go to somebody who can get your dog on, one of the pressure mats and assess from that point. I mean, because it's barely there, but I think if you can catch stuff when it's barely there, it can potentially keep it from getting really bad.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that one is going to be why I wanted to do a part 2. Okay, to show, to talk to people and to show people, look, this is what is out there. This is what the options and the possibilities are, because a lot of people simply don't know. There's people that I see that say, if I would have known these things existed before, I would have done it years ago.
Right.
So that's one part to it. The other part to it is, and I think you talked about that a little bit before already, we don't even really know what's normal. There may very well be dogs that have a certain amount of mobility, hypermobility, however you want to call it, that cope really well with it because they've got all the muscles to support everything. They know how to use their body properly. So what may be an issue for one dog may not ever become an issue for another dog.
Right.
And it's things that we don't know.
Yeah.
The same with the amount of stifle instability or little bit of cranial draw that you can feel, unless we do a study of the same person doing 200 border collies, because it's going to be breed specific as well, according to a certain protocol, and do it double blinded and all the rest of it, we're not going to know.
Oh, I would love that.
Exactly. But then you run into an ethical issue of, we're going to sedate 200 border collies because somebody doesn't quite know whether that is too much.
Yeah. The sedation part. Yep. Well, the funny thing about border collies is, I mean, because I'm watching dogs, is a lot of times they do really funny things. Like when they're not even moving, they'll hop around, rotating, and one foot will be up, and they do funny things that mean nothing probably. They just do, little acrobatic moves.
Or they sort of are hurting you or are hurting another dog, and it just stops somewhere mid-movement to have a look at something else. And there's a lot of things to it, which again only makes things more difficult, unfortunately.
Right.